I'm so excited today, Jen, to welcome you to the Daily Success Show. Why don't we just kick off by telling our listener about your business and who you serve?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today. My name is Jennifer Gore. I'm the founder and owner of Atlanta Personal Injury Law Group here in Atlanta. I also own Fempreneurship, which is basically a program I'm launching this year to help women entrepreneurs scale their businesses.
Awesome. And how did you get started with your law practice?
You're going to think this is crazy. I was a paralegal in law school. Well, I was in a really bad accident when I was in college, and then I basically knew I was going to become a lawyer and a personal injury lawyer. And so I was a paralegal all through law school, and I switched in. I was a night law student, and I would work like full time during the day as a paralegal and in a personal injury firm. And then pretty much the day I got my license, I opened my law firm. Wow. So that's my story. So I'm going on 7 years now with the law firm.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah. So today we're going to talk all about how you have been successful in removing yourself from the day-to-day of your business. And I think this is like a burning desire for many service business owners that are trying to figure out, especially women, right? We want to be in there, know what's going on. And you have really been successful at doing this. So tell us about like when did the idea of even pursuing this first come about for you?
So in 2016, I had my firm open for maybe, like 3 years. Mm-hmm. My revenues were like around 300,000. And I joined a law firm coaching program. And that was really like my first step into like coaching. And the coaching program was saying like, you don't have a business if you can't leave for 30 days. And I was like, what? Like that blew my mind. I was like, I can't even leave for like 1 day, I felt very tied to the law firm. I was making 300,000 in terms of revenue. I only had one part-time legal assistant. No, I had a full-time at that point. I had a full-time legal assistant, but I mean, she was just a legal assistant. I didn't have any substantial staff. And I think the one key thing was I did hire someone almost immediately when I started the firm. I started off with an intern. And then when the intern's time was over, I was like, no, you can't leave. Like you get really used to having help. So I had a legal assistant, and I feel like I was able to scale my revenue up to that level with one person and me really grinding myself into the ground. But something that happened around that time, which caused me to hire the business coach, was I had my second child. And I was extremely stressed out about marketing and like the firm because we were gaining a lot of momentum, and people would say, well, what's going to happen when you have this baby? Mm-hmm. Like, I want to send you business, but who's going to like handle these cases? And a lot of people made the assumption that I would be out for some type of a maternity leave, even though in my mind at that time, I was thinking, I'm just going to be right back to work as soon as I have this baby. Like I was thinking like, there's no one else to work, so I'll just have to have no maternity leave. It didn't even dawn on me that I could have a maternity leave. And in all reality, there was no way in that business, the way it was structured at the time, I could have had a maternity leave. There was no one else there. The advice I had gotten from fellow lawyers and women in the industry was like, oh, well, just find other people that have their own firm that can like kind of cover for you during this time. And I just didn't think that was a viable option. But I ended up taking phone calls from the hospital when my second child was born.
Wow.
And I had I want to say it caused I had some bit of postpartum depression even after having my son, because I was so overwhelmed. He was born in October, and it's that time of year when everything ticks up, your errands, your tasks, all the holiday planning. And then having the law firm and really having no substantial support or help there. And I was just thinking, this ain't gonna work. Like, I gotta find another way. And that's when I hired that coach, and I heard them talking about, you should be able to leave for 30 days. And it had my ears like perked. So yeah, so that's kind of how I first heard of it.
Okay. And how you began. So what did you do at that point to start this whole journey? But actually, you know what, before we go there, I'm curious about what was the mindset shift that allowed you to go from intern to having that first full-time employee? Because I think there is a big culture around hiring, you know, a series of contractors, right, in a business versus, so you were able to grow your business to, you know, 300K in revenue with just one full-time team member. So what, you know, what mindset shift did you need to make to do that?
In my mind, I think it was at that time ego. Unfortunately, I think I realized like right away, I'm not answering my own phones. I was like, I had this vision, like, you know, think about it. I was a young lawyer at that time. I mean, I'm still a young lawyer, and I'm trying to build this thing that looks legitimate. And I'm thinking, like, if you only have one person, at least you look like, okay, you're not answering your own phones, you're not like licking your own stamps, you're not like, you know, when people call, it was almost like in my mind, I was trying to like build this thing where it looked bigger than it was, you know, where it's like, okay, at least I have a receptionist, you know, like, so, and you know, the financial reality of a law firm is the more people you have, the more like revenue you can generate, really, because what with a law firm, especially a contingency firm, where you hit cash crunches is when you don't have enough people to turn the wheel, you know. So it's like I was able to commit to that person. They did not have a very high salary, number one, so the risk was kind of low. And then I was thinking to myself, if I don't give them a job, like, then they can go work for someone else. Like, I need them to be committed to me.
Yes.
A contractor is kind of like, you know, they may not be loyal to you.
Yeah, they have other things going on, right? So you're just, you know, one of a few priorities that they may have on their list, for sure. Okay, so how did you then begin the process? So that spark of an idea came of like, wait a minute, I need to be able to not be in my business for 30 days. So what did you start taking action on?
Well, that seemed very far in the distance. That seemed like a mega goal. Like, okay, I think even when I first heard it, I was like, that's not real. Like, let me see. I want to see this in action. But then I started seeing people doing it. And I also started hearing people doing like test week off, you know, test week off. And they, you know, were talking a lot about like during a holiday, you need to be off grid. And so that became like a goal that I would have in the back of my mind. Like, okay, one day I would just start believing like I'm going to have a law firm that I can leave for 30 days. I'm gonna, like, you have to buy into that as a reality. And then you have to live like, where the hell is it? Why isn't it here? Like, I would be like, I can't wait for the day when I don't have to be here. You know, I can be gone during Christmas, you know. And so then you're frustrated all the time. Like, when is that time going to come? Because you're expecting it to happen. And the pragmatic, like practical ways of how I realized I had to do it was, number one, you have to like build systems in the business, because you already have systems. You have ways of things being done. They're just not documented. And so you have to like actually formalize that and create systems and procedures, policies for how everything in the whole firm gets done. So if you want to, like, if this is a goal of yours, you need to document everything you're doing in your business and systematize it. And that's going to take time. That took me just to like really start and get that going. And it's an ongoing process once you even do it, but it's at least a year. You know, for me, it was a year just to even like get the wheels turning into everything, because there's a period when you're growing really fast. Our business was growing really fast. We went from like 300 to 600 in that next year. And like when you're hiring people and growing, a lot of the stuff you're doing is changing. So your systems are changing rapidly. And it feels like a frustrating process of documenting when you know like it's going to change. Like you hire one more person and that whole workflow is different. But, you know, if you don't have a way to tell people how to do their job, it's going to be you going over and saying, this is how you do your job.
Yeah.
So one tip I would say, I used to try to write all this stuff down. Where we're at now is we try to do videos.
Yeah, I love it.
Because those are like easy. Like you could pump out a couple of videos. Like, this is how you do certified mail. Let me just do this video. And then you video the person doing it versus writing out 60 procedures.
Yeah.
Like we don't have time for that in a fast growing business.
Yeah. I love it. I'm all about the video. Yes. I'm like looming every day. This is how you do this.
Screencast,
yep.
You know, screen shares on Zoom. You can just record. We're doing that a lot now that everyone's gone virtually. This is like a huge opportunity for every single thing you're talking with your team about to be recording it and doing videos, trainings.
So what were some of the first bits of systems that you began to document in your business?
So for me, with the law firm, we were like, we've got to document how this work gets done, the deliverable, you know. So it's like, this is the steps. This letter has to go out, then this record has to be collected. And we started with that. You know, the things that are very repetitive that have to be done all the time. And one thing you can do is you can, you know, if you already have someone working for you, you can have them document their job. Mm-hmm. We said, hey, can you write down how you're doing everything? And then sometimes you discover they're doing things the way you do not want them to be doing them. You know, like,
that's true.
Oh, you're doing that? I never trained you to do it that way, you know? So that's a good audit on how are they doing the work. And I think you really need to do that with a lot of staff. Like, we'll get into audits later. We do audits, but you need to be auditing your systems once you have systems and spot checking, because there's things about your systems that are not working the way you think they're working.
That's so true. So it sounds like you first started off with your client delivery process and having that documented. And were you doing that at the point you just had the one full-time team member?
Yeah. So we started documenting everything. And then once you start adding on people, then you start splitting jobs apart, because that one person, when you have one person, is wearing a lot of hats. Mm-hmm. So then you got to start taking hats off of them. And even if you can only hire another part-time person, so you have one full-time person, one part-time person, then you need to document for this part-time person what their role is and what tasks they're responsible for. And then from there, you're going to be able to delegate down. And another key thing with documenting and systems is, what is the question you get asked all the time? Because the whole point of the system is for them to do it the way you want them to do it. You now have a guideline. This is how I told you to do it. See, it's right here. It's this video. Or B, well, I would say or B, you want to be able to, when they ask a question, say, hey, did you check in the policy and procedure thing I gave you before you come ask me? Because you're wasting my time if you keep asking me how to do certified mail, and I've already done a video and written a whole thing about it. You know, it gives you freedom.
And do you keep your systems documented in like a, you know, Google Drive folder, or like how do you disseminate that to the team or make it available?
So we have a policy and procedure like manual. We started out like printing it, and that was just so much work because it was constantly being revised. Now we have it on a Dropbox, and we have it now broken down into the different parts of the business. So we have like a front office guide, a legal, you know, the legal work guide, the marketing guide, the financial systems guide. We have the HR and management guide, and like you just build them. And like there's portions where you're like, this is not built yet, to be built, but at least you have like a framework. And my next level is, you know, then we start putting in videos, see video in this Dropbox, you know, But my next level is to go to this program called Trainual, which they actually help you build an online training. It's like a training platform for, you know, housing all of this in like a cloud. I think that would be next level, because my friend is doing it right now, and when people are onboarded onto the business, then they go through this, it like takes them through a training on how to, you know, all the systems of the business.
Okay. Okay, so let's go back. This is great. So basically you're saying make sure that you start the process of just documenting in a very simplistic way with a checklist or a video, so someone can know how to run different aspects of the business, from client delivery to financial systems to HR to front end, every little piece of the business that needs to get done, just a little bit at a time, start getting that documented. I love it. So then let's look at, you know, that first test, right? You talked about before you can even think about the 30-day process, you got to test that whole idea of being able to have a week off. So how did you get to the point of getting your week off, and what did you learn in that first test week off that you did?
So what I will say is I did my first test week off last fall. I went last fall, I went completely off grid. So this is in 2019, right? So in 2018, I realized I needed to hire a lawyer and an operations person. Those were my two key, they were my right hand and my left hand in the business, right? Because you start to document in your business, what are the key things, once you hire a lot of like admin or support people, what are the key things that you're still doing day to day that have to get done for you to be able to step away? Let's say you want to go on a vacation. When you go on vacation, what are the things that actually don't, hey, I don't know why that's, do you hear that?
No.
Okay. What are the key things that happen that, you know, you still have to do? And for me, the legal work, you know, the legal work was, you know, I could not delegate that to an assistant ethically. I mean, I'm the lawyer. So I knew I would have to hire a lawyer. But the thing I didn't realize, and I came to realize through my business coach, was I needed an operations person. And so the operations person, you don't want to be a lawyer. A lawyer, their best use is doing legal work. The operations person is like it's a more advanced version of an office manager. I mean, they have hiring and firing authority. And they're really running the business aspects of the business alongside of the owner. So until you have those those two key positions, my business coach was like, you're not going to be able to leave. Like, just know that. And I think that's where a lot of people get messed up, because I tried it earlier on and it just flopped. Like, I tried to leave prematurely. Like I tried to do it when we didn't have those people in position, and your business will fail, and then it will reiterate to you, I can't leave, which is negative.
Right.
So you don't want to set yourself up for failure. So once I got those people in, and then they were there for they were there. It wasn't like I hired them and I left the next day. They were there and trained and fully working by the time I decided to do the test week off. If I was not confident in them being able to do the test week off, that like if they had only been there for a month or something, I wouldn't have set myself up for failure like that. So I did the test week off, and it was really scary. And this was only last October, I want to say, so maybe 6 months ago. And I prepared the team. At that point, we had 8 people, or I think it was like 8 or 9 people there. And I prepared them, and I almost felt like I had to wean them off of my presence. Now, at that point, I was only going into the firm maybe 2 days a week, and I was working remotely because I was pretty pregnant at the time. I had a baby in January. So in October, I was like, 7 months pregnant or something?
Yeah.
So I'm telling them I'm going to have a maternity leave. I'm going to be gone in January for 6 weeks. Like, we're pre-setting that on them. And that's like, you have to realize that you may have created an environment where they are very needy on you, you know? And so I was like, we're going to go through a test week to build your confidence that you guys are going to be fine without me. And we did it. And, you know, there was a few little hiccups that occurred. And that was the goal of that test week off, is you want to be able to say, like, what breaks when I'm not here, right? And the things that broke, we were able to fix by the time I needed to go on the leave in January. And that was, you know, mostly a lot of financial systems. It really wasn't.
Say what broke.
So the things that broke is I used to sign all the checks. And we have a financial person there who does all the deposits and cuts all the checks, but I signed all the checks. And that was like the last thing that was physically tying me to the office. And we found a system with the bookkeeper, the financial person, and my operations person, where they can send me through a positive pay system at the bank, an approval system, where the bank will only basically like approve things once they're, you know, virtually approved by the bookkeeper. So there's a way around everything.
That's great.
You have to create like checks and balances and use technology.
Okay, so let's talk about this operations person. So for someone listening right now that's like, oh my goodness, this is the person that I'm missing. How did you identify that person and drill down for us? What are some of the specific things that they took over in the business?
So in the law firm coaching program I was in, they were really pushing us to have this key person. They called it a firm administrator. The person that I have, she actually was a paralegal that I had in the business before. And she had been in the industry we're in for like 30 years. And she knew all the workflows and all the processes of the business backwards and forwards.
Nice.
She had worked for multiple different well-known firms in the industry and was really like seasoned. She was the one who'd be like, I want to build a policy around this. Or she was the one who the rest of the staff was really like looking up to and, you know, went to for leadership and guidance. So she was a natural leader. And so we promoted her to that role. And, you know, she's really thrived in that role because you can't manage what you don't understand. So putting somebody in that role who doesn't understand the workflow, the process, all of that, it's very hard for them to manage and see if people are productive. I will say, as with all things, my first hire into that role was somebody that was not a good fit.
Okay.
I did initially hire somebody from outside the industry who she had experience in another industry and it did not work at all. So you have to realize like you're not going to get this all right. I also say the same thing with attorneys. It took me like 3 attorneys to find the right one to replace me. And you have to be willing to like fail and like, okay, I hired this person and it didn't work out. I believe there's another way. I believe there's another person out there and I'm going to just keep going and I'm going to fail and I'm going to fail and I'm going to fail, but I'm going to eventually succeed. Like you have to have that.
So it sounds like as you were hiring people, right, even though some of them didn't work out, as you got further along in the hiring process and trying to find the right person, at some point you already had like a whole SOP that you could give that person for being able to do their job. So even though it wasn't the right person, it was less intensive because you weren't doing all the finding the person and all the training from scratch. Now you had this whole system, you know, guidebook.
I don't do any of the onboarding at all. The firm administrator, she does all the onboarding through a process, a workflow. you have to follow a procedure even for onboarding somebody. And every single person you hire needs to have a very full job description and a job offer letter. You need to have a job description outlining everything you're expecting them to do so that they have a clear understanding of their job.
So what does your team look like now? So tell us when you went from sort of that first full-time team member to now, who did you bring on, and sort of what was the order of hiring?
So we have a receptionist, still a legal case manager, legal assistant, paralegals type person who is the support to the attorney. We have an attorney. We have another associate co-counsel attorney. We have the firm administrator. We have a marketing person. We have an intake person. We have a financial and basically financial person. They create all the checks and client files. And then a bookkeeper, and I think that's everyone. Yeah. So for me, another thing another point of liberation, which the operations person and the attorney were very key because we're a service-based business. But another thing that I think hangs up a lot of people is the intake and onboarding.
Okay.
So there was a time in the firm where I was doing all of the intakes. I don't do any intakes. I mean, very rare. And I'm like the backup intake person. So that is the life source to your business, onboarding new business. And you need to have somebody that is their full-time dedicated role to be onboarding clients. And I had that well before I had the firm administrator or the attorney. So I don't know if that kind of in that order, for me, making sure that you had ongoing new business coming in was critical to growing the business.
Mm-hmm. So that's exactly where I was going to go. So I think a lot of business owners, especially service-based business owners, feel that, it's 100% their role and their responsibility to be selling. And in many cases, they're so bogged down in the client work that they're not able to spend the amount of time that they need to on selling. But in other cases, they don't feel like they don't have a process to feel like they can actually transition or out of that. So I love to hear what was working for you in terms of marketing, and how did you figure out how to hand that off?
So what I ended up doing was, the firm was originally named the Gore Law Firm. And then I realized that I was developing a marketing problem for myself in the long term, that if I kept the firm that way and I was marketing the firm as, hey, you get me, I'm your go-to person, and that's how a lot of lawyers market themselves, then if I hire a lawyer or I hire any other person, they're not going to want to work with that staff member. They're going to want to work with me exclusively. And I was running into that. And there's no way, as the owner of the business and the business I wanted to grow, that I could be everything to every client and market myself that way. So we changed the name of the firm to Atlanta Personal Injury Law Group, which gave me the freedom to market the business in a different way. So I wasn't marketing me as the product or the service as my vision for the firm, and the way we do things is what we sell. And we are able to systematize how, we believe things should be done efficiently. We believe things should be done systematically. We believe you should not miss anything in terms of evidence. There's a lot of procedures and things we have in place to make sure quality legal work gets delivered, developed from my vision for the firm. And we sell that. We don't sell, you exclusively get access to any one person. We're a team, and we sell a team approach. And a customer service experience that I think a lot of law firms don't deliver or even think about. So you have to think about, what are you selling? Because that's what's people are being attracted to that message. And then if you can't deliver it, it's going to be a problem. And so if you are selling, you get me, then you're going to have a problem passing that baton on to somebody else. But you can make a shift in your marketing and think about, when you buy a Louis Vuitton bag, are you thinking that Louis Vuitton himself is still making that bag. No, you're buying into a brand and a vision. You know, you have to think like that. And maybe you don't know your vision. That's something I also had to figure out.
So what kind of, what's the day-to-day work like right now of your person who's responsible for bringing in business, finding new clients?
So the marketing person is separate from the intake person in my business now. The intake person is literally just handling all leads and converting them into clients. So that is truly like a sales position, I would say. Like they go through a checklist of, are these things here? That means, yes, we can take your case. Then they sign that person up and bring the case to me or the other attorney or somebody in the legal team for final approval. And then that person gets onboarded, and then they have an onboarding process for bringing that client into the firm that they're responsible for. But the sales and the marketing, those are marketing systems that deliver the leads to the sales and intake team, you know, that portion of the business. And the marketing systems, we have several vendors that we're working with that the marketing person is working on reports and looking at what's working in our marketing at all times, because you have to measure every marketing thing you're doing and seeing what's working. So the marketing person is kind of like measuring. And I think a lot of marketing people don't think about that, but you need to have a really clear view of what every single lead did, where did it come from, and what converted.
Yeah, I love that. That is so absolute true. Marketing is really about the data. I mean, you need the
data.
Yeah, that make the marketing decision. It's not really about like, you know, pretty graphics and
I don't care how ugly it is. If it converts,
yeah.
People get so sucked into marketing being like all about the look. I have so many meetings with the marketing person on my team and vendors, and they're like, we got you 40 leads. And then we got our data right here. Those converted into 0.
Right.
You know,
right.
Who cares?
Right.
You got the wrong leads.
Yeah.
You know, and I think people are not on top of their leads and conversions to have real reports to talk this stuff through, and they get hoodwinked by vendors all the time. PPC, Facebook, you know, all different things that people are doing. You've got to watch your numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. So making that move from that 1-week test, understanding some things were broken in the business, to finally being able to, you're still on maternity leave now, right?
Yeah, so my maternity leave was supposed to be over at, like, I ended up thinking, well, in my mind, I was thinking 6 weeks is my like goal. And then January started, and now we're at 10 weeks, and I'm like semi back because of this whole COVID-19 situation. Like, I was planning to go back to the office 2 days a week or 1 day a week. I really wasn't firm on what my plan was going to be. I was giving myself the space to kind of like what feels good. But now we've converted the entire firm to virtual.
Wow.
Which we did overnight, because the firm actually was already transitioned to an ability for me to be able to work virtually if I had to. Because in the last few weeks of my pregnancy, I didn't want to go to the office anymore. And so we started making the firm, we were already probably 80% there, but we did a lot of work to make the whole firm virtual, knowing that if I had to come online for any reason, I would be from home. Right. So now we're all working virtually, and we've had so much fun, actually. Like, we're like, wow, we were so set up for success because of my maternity leave, because all the financial systems are done in a way that's virtual, really. All the reporting, all the metrics, all the management has had to have been created in a way to be virtual by nature of me being out.
That's amazing. So let's give some steps for somebody who's thinking, Jen, this all sounds amazing. I want this week off. I want this 30-day walk away from my life. What are some action steps that they can begin to take? So first, you talked about being able to set up systems in their business. How do they go about making this happen for themselves?
Okay, so I think it's key that you have to have the right players, and we already talked about that. Your business honestly has to be at a level where you can replace yourself from all the things that need to get done, which is the marketing, the sales, the production, the HR, and the financial systems. All of those have to be replaced. Otherwise, those are all the viable parts of your business. And if you don't have all those covered, you're going to set yourself up for failure. So that is really key. The thing I think a lot of people are maybe questioning is the momentum of the business. Like, there's the momentum that's created by the owner that drives sales, that drives production. And how I figured out how to navigate that over the last few years, that has been very liberating, is everybody in my firm has a bonus structure. So you have to really think about that. First of all, you can't have a bonus structure if you don't have systems and procedures and ways to like measure if people are doing things the right way and are doing things in a way that is getting you to the goals that they're supposed to be delivering. So like each role, you need to develop a way where this is the bare minimum they have to hit. And then if they hit this, they get bonus level 1. If they hit this, they get bonus level 2. And then you will harness the power of people's drive and motivation to hit their goals, and they will thereby hit your goals.
Okay, I love that. So implementing a bonus structure to incentivize team members to get things done that are helping the business to grow and scale. Okay, and then what else can we do to get this into action?
I think that if the question is like, how can you leave, you've got to work on your own mindset about letting go and delegating. I think that is really what's tying most women to their businesses.
Yeah.
Women stay small in the world because they don't want to delegate and let go of control. And I believe that takes a lot of mindset work, and you have to hire the right people, and the right people are the right people for you. So for me, I went in 2018, I went through like a very difficult time in my firm where I had like a culture crisis, and I had hired a lot of people, but they were not my people, if you know what I mean. Like, they were not the people that stood for what I believe in, my values. I don't even know how I got these people. I think at the time, with the way I was hiring was very entrepreneurially immature. And I was just like, oh, you've done this job before, I'll hire you. Mm-hmm. And I had no clue about really hiring. And so I had created this system where like I had hired all these people that I hated working with. And it will make your life like horrible. If you hire and surround yourself with people that don't truly free you up, are not like the culture and brand that you are trying to build, it will just drain the life out of you. And so I had to spend about a year getting really good at hiring and building a firm culture. And when you can build that culture, you know what you're looking for, and you make less bad hires.
Yeah.
And so spending some time and really thinking about like, what do I stand for? What are the things I stand for? And what are the kind of people that, like, if you're doing a sales job, for example, there's very specific personality traits for people that do sales. You cannot have somebody who's extremely shy, who hates to be on the phone in a sales position. Like, you just can't. That will not work. You need to spend time thinking about like, what does a person in this role, what do they look like? What kind of characteristics do they need to have? Our goal is to have for every single role in the firm, like a profile of like what characteristics for hiring and DISC and different things for people that have worked out and people who have not worked out, because you just, if you hire the wrong people, you are going to feel like you cannot leave. It's when you have great people and great systems that's going to make you feel the confidence that you can leave. And I can tell you, there's a lot of people out there that have built teams that are what I call a cast of assistants. they're just people that, you have to constantly crank their wheel. You have to constantly tell them what to do. They are not self-automating. They don't have any type of authority. You haven't given them anything in terms of delegation of any type of authority. And they are pretty taxing to manage because they need constant direction. And if you create that, that will never give you the feeling like I could leave. The other thing I would say is reports. So we, track and measure everything that's part of our firm culture. And so I built a dashboard. I built a dashboard with my firm administrator. And when I was out for those 6 weeks, what we did was we built one key report, and it would tell me production, sales, marketing, financials, and it was key metrics. And we did a test run for 2 months before I went off on the maternity leave of how we wanted these reports to work. And sometimes she would add certain numbers on there and I'd be like, I don't need those numbers. Like we would test it, like what numbers, if I just had to look at one report, would tell me the life and the health of the business. And developing those reports, that is how CEOs manage businesses when they're in Europe. They get a report, and we started highlighting, okay, like once we had the report, we said, okay, what are benchmarks? So like I would have the benchmark. This is how many hours was supposed to be produced. This is how much was. So I didn't even have to think about it. It's like, did they hit the benchmark or no?
Right.
And then if you see that the benchmark is not hit, then that's your conversation. I would have like a weekly meeting with my firm administrator while I was out on my maternity leave. And I would just check in with her that 1 hour a week during the whole week. And we would go through the report, and then she would, take action on whatever needed to be done. And that's how we did it.
I love that, Jen. So at Daily Success Routine too, we have what we call our success metrics, sort of a KPI dashboard of key drivers of the business. I'm curious for you, being out of the office, what in some of the different categories, what were you looking at for your team?
So I was looking at leads in, conversions for marketing. We were looking at production goals. So in the firm, there was different things that legal documents that had to go out. So we have metrics on that. How many cases were filed in litigation. And then we also we have a really robust software that we use for the law firm. If you have a law firm, you should have some type of case management software that manages all of the client files. And our software has everyone, how we were talking about like your systems, all of their tasks and workflows are populated in their system. And we actually use in our key report, we call it a flash report, how many tasks were accomplished by each staff member in that week. So they tick off. And so you'll notice trends. Like let's say staff member A always does at least 90 tasks a week. Well, if you run that report and they did 3 tasks the next week, that's something to look into.
Yeah. Red flag.
Yeah. Yeah, so we do their task report and like for all the staff members. And then we also do how many things got marked to completion. So that's like a completion goal thing. And then we look at, for marketing, like how many people gave us our firm reviews and Google and different things like that. But we tried to break it down to like really the most. When I first started this report, it was like 3 pages long. And my CFO was like, there's no way, like that's too much. What is like the key things? Because she's like, if you just have only 1 hour and you only want to dedicate 1 hour, just make it really simple that you can really see what's going on.
I love that. And I like too that you have what I would call some more proactive metrics. So the things that people can do that are actually drivers of the business versus sort of like waiting to see what happens. I think that is definitely critical. Okay. Yeah. So, go ahead.
One of our core values is being proactive. Developed over running into, like, all true procedures come from some mistake that happened where you're like, I'm never going to let this happen again.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us, what advice do you have? Well, first, let me just say my last two questions. What is your communication like right now with your team? So you're sort of, you're back, but you know everybody can do everything. So.
Well, okay. So the first week that I went out on the maternity leave, people were still emailing me. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. Like, and we had to have like a no. Like, you have to set a boundary. And so what we did was we started funneling all of their questions through the firm administrator, because she gets that one meeting with me a week.
Okay.
So we said to them, if you have any urgent questions that need to go to Jen, you funnel them to Tracy, my firm admin. And if she deems it necessary, then she'll up-level it to me. Well, when we started doing that, Tracy was like, none of these are Jen level questions. Like, you know, but they're just, they want a connection with you as the owner. They want to be able to like say like, oh, I just ran this by, you know, there's still a level of that. So once we cut that off, and then it was fine. And then I came back like after 8 weeks and we had like a Zoom meeting and everyone was like, we were fine. We just had to they had to like get over it in their mind. Like, oh yeah, I don't need to go to her for this. And so I feel like when I go back now, like eventually when we are all back in an office, like I think they have grown so much in their own ability to get things done without having to waste time to come like ask me, you know? They already know the answer. They already know, you know, it's like they developed more strength in themselves by not having me as like the net, like the rescuer to go in and be like, yes, you're doing a good job. That's right. Because now they had to question, like, do I really need to waste her time with this? Because now I got to go tell Tracy and then she's got to tell her. And then they're going to be like, what, you know? So now we have Zoom check-in meetings. We're having them right now. We went virtual 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks ago, because this is the second full week. We're having them Zoom check-in meetings at 10 a.m. 3 times a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, just to kind of like see how everyone's doing. But really, they're still just rocking and rolling. They're still doing really well. And my main focus right now in COVID-19 is, okay, how can we be there for our clients? So I've been doing a lot of calls to clients just in a support way. How can I be of service to them? Where are they? How are they feeling? And vendors, I've spent a lot of time talking with vendors and referral sources to try to be, you know, of service to them. And I've been able to stay in more of like the high level CEO style role of the vision on like, how are we going to manage through, you know, I've been doing different things in the trying to like secure our business, you know, like this is an unknown time. And instead of me worrying about doing every little level of legal work or paralegal work, like I'm able to think about like, how are we going to get through this situation in a really high level way, and being a leader to my team in terms of mindset and like not down in the trenches, like losing my mind, you know. My role right now is so critical to stay at a high level way of thinking. And so by me not just jumping back in and going down into the trenches, I think that I can focus on some big picture things that are really critical for any business.
I love that. Did you have like a CEO day or any of that before you got to the point where you were able to have the team run everything, where you could sort of still think strategically outside of?
Yeah, so I do like multiple, me and the firm administrator do some of that. I do a business plan deep dive every 6 months, in the business. So we sit for the whole, like, it's probably a 3-day process, and we go through the business plan, we revise it, we look at the actual numbers, where they are. And then when you're growing fast, that stuff changes. You really should be, if I was really proactive, I would be doing it quarterly, but at least 2 times a year. And, looking at what do you want to build? Like, because you can get caught up growing and then you don't know where you're going.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. That's a good quotable. Caught up growing and don't know where you're going.
Yeah. Or like, I would set goals that like I thought were big, but then we would hit them, and then you're like, well, now what? Are your goals big enough? Are you able to do a reach goal?
So tell us about sort of final words of advice you would give to other women entrepreneurs that are looking to remove themselves from the day-to-day of their business.
I really think I've talked about like a lot of really practical things, but the thing that has moved the needle for me the most, and I think I wouldn't have been able to take action on those things, is my mindset. I spend a lot of money on my mindset, and I'm talking like I'm in retreats, I'm in workshops, I'm in personal development things like all the time. And that's like my passion, is like trying to grow my mindset, because if you're not in the mindset, like the mindset is making the decisions and it's taking the action, and you've got to surround yourself with people that have a mindset like you want to have. You can't surround yourself with people that can't think big and can't think about like where you're trying to go. And I'm very like picky about who I spend my time with and who I surround myself, because I know I'm very susceptible to the ideas of whoever I'm spending a lot of time with. You're the, what do they say, like the sum of all the people that you spend your time with.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people that along the way that maybe they weren't growing their business, and they would tell me what I wanted to do was impossible.
Wow.
They would say like, you can't do that. Like, you can't leave for 30 days. Like, that's irresponsible. Well, yeah, it's irresponsible if you do it in an irresponsible way. If you build it systematically, like I've described, it's very responsible, and you have checks and balances. So I would say you really got to work on your mindset. You've got to surround yourself with people that are doing big things and that are doing things that are pushing the boundary. And you've got to like get away from the people that are telling you this stuff is not possible, because it's totally possible.
Yeah. All right, that's awesome. So let's wrap up with, you now have been able to set your business up in a way that allows you to start a whole new venture. So tell us about that. And
so all along the way, like I realized, I had gone to business school before law school. And I realized this is like my passion, is really like building businesses. And both my parents were very entrepreneurial. My dad is like a serial entrepreneur. And so I realized through a lot of the different work of building the law firm, like this is what I love doing, is talking about building businesses, and how can I help other women like build businesses, because the freedom and the life I get to lead now, I wish all women could live, like have an experience of that. And if I can help other women, achieve this, it's just so rewarding. So now I'm starting, because I've built my business in a way where I have more freedom to do other projects and be more like a serial entrepreneur. I want to help women build and scale their businesses through my new business, which is entrepreneurship. And we have just really started putting out content in the last few weeks or months, and we're really excited for what this year is going to bring.
Awesome. And are you primarily working with other attorneys, or is it kind of open?
It's really women businesses in general. To me, honestly, a business is a business. Yeah. And they're all just, selling different things. That's really what businesses are. And so we're not really niched down right now. lots of different types of businesses. So we're really looking to just help people who are scaling and really want to scale up and build all the systems and things like we talked about.
Amazing. So where can people find out more about you, Jen, and what you're working on?
You can follow me personally, or you can go to Fempreneurship on Facebook. We can put the links here below, and we'd love to have you follow us and check us out.
All right.
Another,
awesome.
yeah, one key thing that we're going to be talking about, I think a lot, which is my focus for this year, which is a whole nother topic, is with the business, is women who have children that want to scale. Because, you know, that adds a whole nother element, you know, of complication of how are you going to build $1 million business with, you know, I have 3 kids now.
Yeah, and because there's some very real considerations, right? When you have little tiny humans that are tugging at your ankles while you're trying to also be on a business call. So I love that.
Yeah, I think that's another place that a lot of women get stuck.
Well, thank you so much, Jen. This has been amazing. So glad to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to follow what you're doing. You're doing amazing things, and I'm just so inspired by you.
Oh, thank you.